Good evening. We'll get this meeting underway. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. We're going to try to present some facts, maybe help answer some of your questions, if you have any. We're going to have a presentation by the superintendent, some of the staff. Then we're going to go to a question and answer period based on the presentation, and then we'll have some brief public comments. But before I do that, I'd like to have the board members introduce themselves. Jen, you start.
Jenny Sharna, Eastbrook.
Janet Wilpan, Sorrento.
Melissa Rockwood, Ellsworth.
Roy Gott, Franklin.
And I'm Mike Pinkham from Sullivan.
Jamie Budo, Walden.
Mike Bierman, Hancock.
Brett Jones from Lamoine.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. We'd like to start this evening by telling you a little bit about the kinds of things that RSU 24 has been engaged in and things we're working on. This is an opportunity for you to, I know some of you have children in the schools, and if you do, you may already know about some of the things we're going to tell you about. But some of you perhaps are community members who don't know exactly what are the things that we're working on. So we're going to take a couple minutes and talk about, we're going to pretty briefly go through different aspects of the district operation and give you an idea of some things that the RSU has underway. We're going to start off this evening by talking about our ED programming. That's the educational programming and what's happening instructionally for children. And in order to present that, I'd like to introduce Katrina Kane, the Assistant Superintendent. Katrina? You actually have a copy of the slides if you picked them up in the back. This is difficult for you to see, but we do have it projected above. Hey everyone. It's getting cold out. Just a few things I'd like to highlight tonight that are pieces we're particularly proud of that we've done over the past few years. To start with, Hancock County Technical Center, HCTC, we've added new programs there, 3 new programs: law enforcement, welding, and early childhood. We've also demonstrated growth in student achievement on our state and nationally normed tests. We have initiated alternative education programming at the high school level, at both high schools, and this is really helping a population of students that traditionally haven't had an alternative, and it's really assisting with dropout prevention. We're very pleased with the work that is going on at the in the Visual and Performing Arts Department. A couple examples of that are the Main Arts Assessment Initiative, which is really a teacher leadership initiative. Teachers are working together to collaborate and share assessments, planning for instruction and curriculum, and they're sharing their work statewide. Ellsworth High School has launched a Visual and Performing Arts Academy. District-wide, we've implemented positive behavioral intervention and supports. We call it PBIS, and if you're a parent, I'm sure you've heard about that from your students, and this is really aimed at reducing bullying and helping students to understand how important it is to take responsibility for their actions, and it's really a proactive approach with students. We've sustained a commitment to the Main Content Literacy Project, which has the involvement of many teacher leaders, and they bring their knowledge back to the schools, do presentations with their staff, and we've worked really hard to share those best practices in literacy across all the content areas. We're also engaged in the Physical Science Partnership, or PSP. This is another teacher leadership initiative in collaboration with the University of Maine, and it brings new practices in science to the middle level. And finally, we've implemented new curriculum in social studies, a program called TCI, Teachers Curriculum Institute, and what we really like about this is that it's created by teachers for teachers. I'm going to ask Curriculum Director Erica Mazzeo to come up and share with you initiatives that are going on right now and some of the plans we have for the future. Erica?
Thank you, Katrina. We have a lot underway in the RSU, and this is just a quick snapshot. We've been working closely with teachers to streamline the learning experience and guarantee opportunities for all students in the RSU. And this outlines a number of the key initiatives that we have underway to ensure that. Implementation of Springboard English Language Arts and Math in grades 6 through 12, so a completely vertically aligned curriculum opportunity for those students. Implementation of iExcel, which is a mathematics support application, and that stretches from K through high school. Adoption of everyday math programming in K through 5, and this is just a revision of the current, up until last year, what we used for math programming in K through 5. So an upgrade to the Common Core Aligned version. We've adopted Lucy Calkins writing in K through 5, which is also Common Core Aligned. And we've instituted time during the school week for extra support for struggling students across all of our schools. We have a redesign of the K-5 science up and coming. This is going to address next generation standards as well as some of the main learning results standards for science. An articulation of curriculum fully aligned with the Common Core and national standards in all the other content areas is underway. Developing a system for assessing and monitoring student progress toward proficiency-based diploma. We spoke a little bit about some of this in the meeting last week. I know some of you were here, but this is a major demand on our system at present. And then a realignment to the grading practices to address this new standards-based approach, and continuing to sustain a professional community across schools for sharing work related to instruction, and we've adopted some pretty powerful software tools to support that. So this just speaks a little bit to that collective capacity that we've got as an RSU to serve students and support teaching and learning. A vertical agreement with curriculum and programming, professional learning collaboratives with depth and breadth that we're able to accomplish with our numbers, and representation in state and regional forums and boards. We're very present in those, in all of the work going on at the state level. So from this point, I'd like to introduce Lynn Maddox from Special Education.
Thanks, Erica. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see everyone out tonight. I'm Lynn Maddox, Director of Special Education. And what we've been working on is building local programming to minimize costly out-of-district placements and allowing easy access for students from any community to receive specialized services. And we've implemented a new program this year at the Mountain View School for students with significant emotional behavioral needs at the K-4 level. And really what all of those first three bullets are about is providing programming to our students, particularly in small schools like Lamoine, where you have a K-8 population, you have a resource program, but you don't have enough students to have your own life skills program or behavioral program. We have programs within the RSU that can provide those services to your students. And it's not if we can, it's we do it, which is nice. I've been in the district in this area for 10 years, and we haven't always had that in our smaller schools, so that's been nice. What we have underway, we've been training transportation providers regarding how to best work with students with emotional behavioral needs, and that's been mainly our special transportation providers. And we continue to work to reduce identification through meeting the needs in the regular classroom setting. We want our children to be in the least restrictive educational setting possible. And that's what special education has been working on. Thank you. And I would like to introduce April Clifford, Director of Technology.
Hi. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here. If any of you have 7th, 8th graders or high school students, you've seen a lot of me, whether it's talking about the new iPad initiative or helping your students reset their passwords. But I'm really thrilled to be here because amazing things are happening in RSU and technology. The first thing that we've done is we implemented a one-to-one program for all students district-wide, grades 6 through 12. So if a student is in grades 6 through 12, they have a one-to-one computing device. We provided what are called COWs, or computers on wheels, for each school. These are specifically used to bring into the classroom so that there's whole group instruction utilizing the computers. One of the best things that we've really done that have made a financial difference in my department is that we have certified, Apple certified technicians on staff. So what happens in MLTI if a student has a computer that's broken? Before, we would pick up the computer, bring it to IT, pack it up, send it off, they'd open it, they'd pack it off, they'd repair it, send it back, we get it back to the student. That process took 7 to 10 days. So you had a student without a laptop or access to a device, where we have been involved in the MLTI program for 13 years. So that's a big gap for students. What we did is we were able to get 2 technicians on staff certified. So what happens now if a computer's not working or it's broken, it comes right to the IT department, they order the part, they fix it, and it's back in student hands. So the turnaround went from 7 to 10 days to a max of 48 hours. So we're really proud of that. In addition, we were paying for parts and labor and shipping before. The only thing we pay for now is parts. So it's really made a significant savings in sustaining that MLTI program. The other thing that we have is we have technology integrators. And so technology integrators are contracted teachers who partner with classrooms to help implement technology into their instruction. They support programs that we have, such as the Everyday Math program or IXL, or they work with, I know that they've done a project here with Mrs. Duffy implementing a programming program called Scratch. So it's a team teach approach to help support teachers in integrating technology into the classroom. I'm really, really proud of that addition. Before in technology, what would happen is students would come to computer class once a week, and they really weren't using that within the classroom. It was kind of a standalone program. So this change is really significant, and it makes technology a part of classroom use. What we've got going on right now is we're implementing an iPad program. So grades 7 through 12, we opted into MLTI 3, and so every student in grades 7 through 12 has been issued an iPad. We also, through that program, any teacher who teaches students in grades 7 through 12 has a MacBook Air and an iPad Mini. The other thing that we're working on this year is to ensure that every classroom in the district has what we call digital projection, which is basically the device that's projecting right now for you, so they're able to project either from their iPad or their laptop what they want to show kids, whether it's a website or PowerPoint presentation or a document. What we're looking for in the future is to really continue meeting the goals of the technology plan. The technology is a 3-year plan that's created by the technology committee, which is parents, students, and staff members. It's approved by the board, and then it's submitted to the state for approval. That plan has outlined some very ambitious goals. So we always continue to work and strive to meet those goals. The other piece of that is we really want to ensure that our students have updated technology in their hands. So we have what's called a 5-year replacement cycle. So we want to ensure that our students have access and our teachers have access to technology that is replaced every 5 years. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to introduce David Bridgham, Business Director.
I'm not exactly sure why she would be thrilled to do that, but I'll go with that.
That means I'm done, that's why.
So, to talk a little bit about finance issues, and things that we've done, it's pretty well documented and widely reported that we've been able to contain costs. We've done it through the elimination of duplicate functions that used to occur in separate organizations. We've done it through maximizing the use of our economies of scale and our buying power. And we've done it through the use of effective business practices that result in savings. Because of this, we've been able to weather 2 curtailments in the last 4 years. One pretty significant one of $825,000 when the state cut $37 million out of the subsidy to GPA, and get through that without significant disruption of educational programming in the district. And I think the thing that's probably the thing I'm proudest of is, even though we've got less staff, we've been able to divide up our functions and create experts within our finance department so that we have people who can deal with employees who are facing issues with things like workers' compensation issues or health insurance issues and those types of things, and other people that can concentrate on making sure that grants are being run the way they're supposed to run, and the accounting's being done correctly, and the bills are being paid, and paperwork is being followed up with, and reports are submitted. And that's really made us a more effective unit doing that things, and it's freed up time and the ability to pursue other money, which helps everybody, including kids. Right now, some of the things that we're doing, we are negotiating best pricing. Budget season is starting for us. It's almost November, and we're putting together the bids now that we put out early in the season to the vendors who supply things like copier paper and school supplies and those types of things, so that we can lock in pricing and name preferred vendors now and have that pricing in place so that when we start doing our budget requests, we know what we're going to be paying next year. Now, we're also well into the process of working with 5 different employee organizations, completed collective bargaining agreements. There were employee organizations in the prior districts that represented teachers, ed techs, custodians, and bus drivers that just formed. Now we have an employee organization within RSU 24. I always hate the word the RSU because we're one of many RSUs. It isn't like we're unique. RSUs are nothing more than SADs that have been around for 3 decades. But so we're negotiating. We've completed negotiation with 3 of those groups, and we're along in the process with the other 2. For the future, the thing I've got up here is finding a solution for combining lease spaces. We've got disparate lease spaces. We have a bus garage in one town and some offices in another town, and we'd like to find a way to consolidate all of those leases, adult ed in another town, and find a way to consolidate all those leases, perhaps make them less expensive and consolidate so that services are closer together and closer to everybody else. I'd also love to find a solution to the long-term problem of the way the EPS funding formula treats coastal towns in Maine, especially coastal towns that don't have a lot of industry and a lot of other things in their tax base, because the way we're being treated is unfair. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute, I've got to do the next one, don't I? Sorry about that. So let's talk about facilities a little bit. During the 4-year tenure, starting our 5th year that the RSU has existed, RSU 24 has existed, I'll just say the district. We brought 2 new buildings online, so we have Peninsula School down in Gouldsboro, we have the new Ellsworth Elementary Middle School in Ellsworth that have come online. They were both under construction prior to the RSU forming, and those construction projects finished up that first year that the RSU 24 existed. We have a Facilities and Transportation Committee and a Budget and Finance Committee, and those 2 committees together, kind of because they both have a little piece of this, have helped us develop and implement a routine process for reviewing and awarding bids and contracts, and to know when we need a public bid, when we need just a quotation from several vendors, and when we can just give somebody a call and have some work done. We've obtained some funding for construction projects in the last couple of years. We obtained originally it says 3.3, but it's actually just $3 million in QSCB money. That's qualified school construction bond. It was money as part of the stimulus package, when the economy went south, it was meant to do work in public buildings and create jobs at the same time. And we didn't. We originally got all the money. We couldn't do all the projects because of issues that affected financing. So we did projects in 5 of our buildings. They're energy conservation projects that ultimately paid for themselves. And those projects are actually winding up right now. And the types of projects we did were new heating systems, installation of windows and doors, and soffits up in the roofs, and those types of things, energy efficient lighting, energy efficient modifications to our refrigeration systems, things like stratification fans and ceilings of gyms, which actually would have been in here. We've also obtained $2 million, $1 million apiece for Sumner High School and Hancock County Technical Center for indoor air quality projects. Basically, it's installing fresh air, mechanical fresh air where it did exist before, which was nowhere in Hancock County Technical Center and most of Sumner Memorial High School. And that project's underway right now. Expect to wind it down in December. Probably by the time everything's punch listed out, it'll be February, and those projects will be completed. Underway, those 2 projects, all of those projects that I just mentioned are underway at this time. The only thing we've got actually to wrap up in the energy conservation projects is the punch list and some training. And the other thing that we're working on right now, we've done some of the work in the schools. We expect to finish it in every school by the end of this year, this calendar year, not the end of the school year, is security upgrades. We're all aware of the issues that are out there, and we expect by the end of December we're going to have remote camera entry systems in every school building, so people who want to enter a school building while kids are in it during the day will come to a door, they'll hit a buzzer, there'll be a camera where the secretary inside can look at a large monitor on the wall, identify the person who's at the door, and hit a buzzer, and that allows them to come into the building. Also planning on installing panic buttons in every building so that if there are issues that somebody can reach under their desk and hit a button and it'll notify all of the first responders in the area. And in fact, for this building, we've already ordered a Knox box so that if there is a lockdown, first responders that come to the building will have a way to get into the building without having staff expose themselves if they're, for some reason, in a secure location. Plans for the future. One of the things that we've never really had is a really organized long-term capital improvement plan. We have the capability to do that. We've got getting our building data into that software program that uses RS means estimators to start to generate some of those plans and allow us to budget in a more scientific manner for what our long-term needs of our buildings are and to make sure things get fixed before they actually break down. Also looking at completing some of the work that we started with these energy conservation projects by developing a comprehensive energy conservation and recycling program district-wide. All of our schools, or almost all of our schools, have some kind of local program, and we're just simply going to incorporate those and then make them part of our long-term plan. And also a long-term and a comprehensive employee safety and training program, which is we do the types of things that we have to do to meet the requirements of the law, but we need to do a little more and be a little more organized about it. And so as I'm starting to lose my voice, thank God, I can turn it over to Suzanne Lucas, who can finish the rest. Thanks.
Thanks, David. So there are 2 other areas of district operation I'd like to touch on. And then we're going to hear from Dawn McPhail, the principal here at Lamoine. She's going to share some information on this particular school and the school in the community. The first I'd like to talk about is food service. Now, actually, food service is now a self-sustaining program as of this year. However, it wasn't always that way. In 2008-9, the year prior to the start of the RSU 24, our 12 communities were kicking in $422,262 annually, or in that year, to support food service. So it was actually taxpayer money subsidizing the food service program. But over the first 4 years of operation in the RSU, we have been able to reduce that. Last year it was $150,000 that we were supporting that program with, and as of this year, that program is now self-sustaining, saving taxpayers the $422,000 that they were putting in to support that program. During that time, we've also installed computerized systems in all of the schools, and that computerized system is kind of a good convenience for parents because they can actually put money on their child's account from home. And when the child goes through the lunch line, and we do have a number of students who receive free or reduced lunch, they are not identified as somebody who's not paying for lunch. It also avoids the idea of having to send lunch money on the school bus. We know sometimes what happens with that. So actually parents can run a balance for their child, and their food service is taken care of without an exchange of money on a daily basis. What's underway right now, we actually are revising our menus. The federal guidelines on school lunches continuously change, and they're increasing the numbers of fruits and vegetables that need to be served to students, and they need to be fresh produce. In addition to that, a switch over from processed to whole grain foods. So actually much healthier for kids, but also unfortunately more expensive. But nonetheless, that's a revision that we're working on. We this year have grants that, not in all of our schools, but I think in 3 or 4 of our schools now, we have grants that allow us to provide fresh fruits and vegetables for the snack time in the school. So students who might be apt to bring snacks that are less than healthy now have the option of cucumbers and tomatoes and peaches and apples that are provided free of charge through this grant. In looking to the future, one of the things that we've talked a lot about and haven't been able to really pull together as well as we should is to engage students in the actual menu planning and nutrition aspects of the food service program. But I will tell you that I was at Ellsworth High School about a month ago and went through the lunch line, had lunch, and I was served squash that the students actually grew out in the school garden. So we are engaging students on some levels in this endeavor to eat more healthy foods, and we're hoping to expand that as we move forward. And finally, some of our food service equipment needs replacement or adding on to that equipment. One of the things we're looking at is adding steaming tables, steamers which would allow us to cook fruits and vegetables in a way that would maintain higher nutrition. So finally, let me talk about transportation. One of the things that we've done with transportation is we've actually consolidated different bus barns into one bus barn for the district. And we have our own district mechanics who actually service our buses. With the exception of things like transmission or major overhaul jobs, most of the routine mechanic work is done right within our district. We have eliminated contracted busing in 5 of our communities and have found that to be a big cost savings. We presently now have 3 communities that still have contracted busing. Lamoine is one of those 3 communities, and we're hoping in the future to be able to eliminate that. And during that time frame, we've purchased new school buses. We actually had a nice bus replacement plan ready so that as buses age, we would replace a couple a year and maintain a fleet that was modern and up to date. Presently, what's underway is we are in the process of hiring a transportation director. This position actually was approved a year ago in the budget for 12-13. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hire that position because when it came around to hiring it, we were facing a state freeze on money, and we had lost $235,000 that year, so we did not fill that position. However, this August, the board did vote to take some money that we had set aside for additional mechanic help and to put that towards hiring someone in this position. What that person will do for us is will help us to improve safety in that particular setting. Presently, when the buses are out on runs, all of our people are out in buses. So if a parent calls because of an issue or there's a problem, there is nobody manning the bus garage, so to speak, or able to contact the buses about a problem. We also are trying to look at converting to essential dispatch and to fully implement digital routing and tracking systems. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but the technology for GPS on buses is really becoming less and less expensive. And we'd like to see this installed on our buses, because then we could be at the bus garage and we could know exactly where every bus is at any given time. So if it was a snowy day, or if there was a problem on the road, we would be able to detect that bus 10 is held up because of an accident on Route 1 and is running 10 minutes late, or what have you. So as parents call and say, gee, the bus hasn't come by yet this morning, we would be able to actually know where those buses are. And obviously, if there were an accident or some other misfortune, it would give us exact location of the bus so that we could get to that bus as quickly as possible. So finally, in the future for transportation, our first goal is to take those bus contracts that we presently have and convert those to district busing as soon as possible, because we know there'd be some cost savings for us in that. It also will allow us to have our own bus drivers. This year we actually instituted a program where our special ed folks did training on student behavior and how to handle behavior problems in students who are having difficulty on buses. If we had our own bus drivers in all of our buses, then we could expand that kind of training, and we think that that would serve our children much better. So I know most of you are probably most interested in hearing what's actually happening here at Lamoine Consolidated School. And so I'm going to turn things over to Don McPhail. Don joins us this year as the principal of Lamoine Consolidated. Don previously served as assistant principal at Ellsworth Elementary and Middle School, and we're really happy to have her here at Lamoine, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the things that are going on here for your children.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good evening. Welcome to Lamoine. For those of you who don't know me, I am the new principal here at the Lamoine Consolidated School. I'm thrilled to see so many people out tonight. The first thing I want to start by telling you that I've been blessed to walk into a school that's just filled with wonderful and experienced teachers who work tirelessly to give the children of Lamoine the best possible educational experience. And I am both proud and privileged to be working alongside them. I'm really enjoying the community. I have a few brief examples. We've heard a lot about the things that the district is doing, but I have some examples of the kinds of work that has been going on here in Lamoine over the last several years. So as we've heard several times tonight, Maine has adopted the Common Core state standards, and the teachers in Lamoine are working hard to master and implement the new curriculums that Erica told us about earlier this evening. More importantly, though, I think that what our teachers are doing are working to help our students become more active in their own learning and in their own assessment. So one of the ways that we're doing that is through student-led conferences, and this was introduced last year at Lamoine, and we're continuing with that this year. And what that means is that students are starting to hear the language of the standards, and they're starting to speak the language of the standards. So for example, some of our middle-level students are actually starting to track their own progress with the standards through student self-assessment checklists. And so they're really starting to talk that talk and walk that walk, and we're really proud of that. We believe that that is going to move our students closer to that proficiency-based diploma that our current 8th graders are going to be working towards when they enter high school next year. We're also embracing the new technology that April told us about. We have one-to-one iPads for our 7th and 8th graders and one-to-one laptops for our 6th graders. We have a cart of computer that's available for classrooms and pods of 5 in each classroom as well. And they're using those the technology to access some of the English language arts and math curriculum and resources that we've made available. So they're using everyday math games, and they're using IXL, which we're really thrilled with IXL. It's allowing our students to have extra math practice, both in school and outside of school. It's helping those students who are struggling, as well as the students who need the extra enrichment, because we have the flexibility to move them in and out of grade levels through that program. The Lamoine teachers have been putting a great deal of effort into RTI, or response to intervention. It's a multi-tiered approach to early intervention of learning needs. So our students are assessed with the NWEA in the fall, and for those struggling students, we set up individual learning plans, and the RTI time is built right into the schedule. So students are able to really work on progressing in the standards that they specifically need work on. And one of the things that we're pretty pleased about this year is that we've made some changes to the way we approach the NECAP assessments. As you're probably aware, Lamoine earned an A on the Maine State Report Card last year. We're very proud of that, and we'd like to keep it that way. So we did a little research, and we know that students do better on these types of tests, and we've always known this, when they get a good night's rest, when they eat a breakfast, and when they're encouraged to do their best. So we implemented the NECAP Best Effort Plan this year, and so students could earn tickets. They could earn 3 tickets for each day of testing. They could earn a ticket for getting a good night's sleep, and they could earn a ticket for eating breakfast, and they earned a ticket for reporting that they did their very best on the test. And those tickets go into grade level drawings for some pretty neat prizes, and we're going to do those drawings on Friday. The kids are pretty excited about it. Research also tells us that students do better on standardized tests when they can chew gum or mints. So we made that available to students as well. Yes, I did bring gum back into the classroom this year. So on a lighter note, we have officially declared Friday Red Sox Day here at Lamoine. We will dress in our favorite Red Sox gear. Students will be allowed to wear hats, Red Sox hats only. I went out on a limb last week and I predicted that it would be the Red Sox in 6. I did that before game 1, and we shall see tonight if I knew what I was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, does anybody on the board have anything they'd like to add?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yep. Any? Wait, Jamie.
After last night, I had some concerns about a lot of the comments that were made, so I would like to say that this presentation and all the information you picked up in the back. So after a lot of the comments that were made last night, I'm kind of concerned about that. So I just want to say the presentation and all the information you picked up tonight in the back is just to help you make the decision. We don't want to make the decision for you, obviously. So this is just to help you try to understand better. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to make your own mind up for you. It's your choice. Just want to make it clear.
When the RSU, when Governor Baldacci and Susan Gendron said that we were going to consolidate, and I've said this at the other meetings, I was not for this. I was against it. Didn't think it was a good idea. They didn't give anybody a chance to discuss whether it was going to work or not work. People had come from other states and said that in that particular place it didn't work. I did 14 years on the board, got off 2, and here I'm back again. And I have certainly changed my mind. Before I left the board, I could see the benefits of the RSU and consolidation. We have saved money. We are providing a curriculum that gets our students into our high schools so that when they come in, they're better prepared to enter those schools with the same knowledge to make them succeed. It is all about the students, and we are really trying as an RSU to provide the best education for the dollars that we have available. At this time, if anybody has any questions regarding the presentation or anything that's been said here so far tonight, I would welcome that, only on those items. And before you speak, I'd like to have you state your name, please.
I'm Heather Fowler. I might be able to talk loud enough without. I don't have a problem talking to them. I wanted to, one of the concerns that I know community members in Lamoine have had are administrative costs. And I know I work at the hospital, we hear every day administrative costs are too high. What are some major considerations when you talk about administrative costs? Building in salaries, looking at budgets. Are we as lean as we could be, possibly? Are we meeting compliance regulations? Where are we with transparency, financial accountability? How do we get the numbers in town? I guess there's a lot of questions rolled into one. But we as communities, if we want numbers to see our budgets, are we able to see those?
Could we please have graph number 3? That'd be great. You have this in your handouts, but I just want to reference that. When you talk about administrative costs, there are a couple different areas that come up. The first is system administration, and this is the one that usually gets the most attention when people are talking about cost savings. They're concerned about my office, the business office, how much is spent in the central administration of the district. If you can see this graph, and if not, if you have this handout in your hands, you will notice that our budget is organized around, I think it's 11 different cost centers. And one of those cost centers, and this is an accounting setup that's required by the state of Maine. So this isn't something that RSU 24 just developed. They tell us very specifically where we have to put certain costs in our budget. So if you look at system administration, you will see very clearly that in 2008-2009, that the combined 12 communities, this is prior to the start of the RSU, we're spending $1.1 million, actually $1,126,780 on system administration. 6 years later, or 6 budgets later, and that's the 13-14 school year, you can see that the system administration cost is $995,000, or savings of about $171,000 over what was being spent prior to consolidation. So when we talk about administration in the district as the central office costs, you can see there that there is a savings over that time period. Now, when you talk about administration in the schools, that's a different story, and that's the next line down, and that is school administration. And school administration actually is up a little bit. It's actually up a good bit, 220,000. But some of the reasons for this are, for example, we put a new elementary school open in Ellsworth, and we added an assistant principal position in that school. I'm trying to think of some other things that we did with school administration. That also includes not just the salaries and benefits of those people, but it also includes other costs to run the offices in the school. So in some places we've had some additional support people added to that. So when you talk about administration, there's the central administration, which is that system administration line, and then there's school administration, which is what actually happens in the principal's offices in the schools.
For transparency purposes, are the towns able to see where their dollars are being spent, the percentages are being spent?
The question is, for transparency purposes, are the towns able to see where their dollars are being spent? That actually is a problem with the way we have to do our accounting. All of our budgets are uploaded to the state, and we have to follow something called the state chart of accounts. It's fund accounting, and we have to organize it in a very specific way. We also not only have to upload our budgets, but we have to upload all of our expenditures and intervals throughout the year. So how we organize our budget is really determined by the state. And this has been a bone of contention through this withdrawal process, because people want to know, well, what part of system administration is Ellsworth paying for, or what part of system administration is Lamoine paying for? We can't break it out that way because it's not developed that way. The district it's not like it was when it was a union, and I think a lot of people have the old union set up in their mind where there was a separate budget for Lamoine, a separate budget for Hancock, a separate budget for Eastbrook, a separate budget, and then they all came together as a pooling of all those different budgets to that union. The RSU is not, the format from the state is not set up that way. We are treated as if we are just one. So things like some of our facilities costs, transportation costs, etc., are not broken out by individual sites and locations. So they are actually put together as a total unit. So that's where we come into problems about trying to say, well, what part of this is spent by Lamoine and what part of this is spent by Hancock. It's impossible for us to disaggregate that because the budget is not created that way.
And she did mention things that aren't in that, and that would be debt service, transportation, nursing services, special education where kids might be in programs all over the district. But the things that we do aggregate out, the things that you can see, and you can see them anytime, are things like how much does it cost to run educational programs here in the school? How much does it cost to run co-curricular programs? How much does it cost to run your library? How much does it cost to run your guidance program? How much do you spend on information technology? How much do you spend on field trips? Those things are aggregated out building by building by building. And for most people, those are the things that they really care about. I mean, everybody wants to, I guess, see the whole picture, but there are some things that are just operated district-wide. But most of the things that probably most parents care about and want to see how that money is being spent are aggregated out building by building, line by line.
So your question has brought something else to my mind. As we've heard people talking about administrative costs, sometimes they've rolled into that some positions that actually are not district paid. So for example, in special education, we have a special ed director and an assistant director. Now, if you were to look at all the numbers, somebody would tell you that we have a second assistant director in special ed. And in fact, we do have a woman in an office who is called a special ed assistant director. And she also has a half-time secretary. But that position is paid by state agency clients, and that person's job is to work for Kids Piece because we are the oversight for that. So because it's a private school within our district, we need to provide oversight. And so it isn't a second assistant special ed director. It's a person who's actually paid by the state to oversee Kids Piece programs. Some other positions that sometimes come up, people say, you know, we have people who are in charge of Title I. Well, it is true that we have a person who's in charge of Title I, but that's paid for by the Title I grant. And that's not really too different than what was happening prior to the RSU, but they may not have had a full-time person, they might have had a part-time person in those kinds of positions. We have someone who coordinates after-school programs, and they are paid entirely through a grant. They are not paid by the district. So sometimes people are putting together positions with the idea that they're paid for by the RSU when in fact they are grant funded. So let me add on to that. Presently we have SIG grants at both of our high schools, and both of our high schools have a principal and an assistant principal. But in addition to that, last year and this year, they both have deans of instruction. And I know, you know, some people say, well, why do we need a deans of instruction in that? Well, because we have these grants that are supposed to be focused on changing instruction. And those grants are paying entirely for those people and their benefits. So they are additional administrative positions for the moment, but they are not funded by the district. They're funded specifically for the goals of that grant. So I think when you talk about transparency, there are people in positions that would be called managers or what have you, but in fact some of those are not funded by the regular budget. They're funded by the programs that are program costs that are covered by grants.
I'm Gordon Donaldson. Since Suzanne, you brought up the point that there are managers who are not listed under system administration. During the process of negotiating the withdrawal agreement with the board, I served on that committee with 3 other people. The final agreement lists 11 managerial positions that we are obligated as a town to pay for. And do you mind if I read those? They are the superintendent, I'm sorry, the 12. The superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the business manager, the accounting manager, the human resources manager, the director of special education, the assistant director of special education, curriculum coordinator, food service manager, director of technology, director of facilities, director of adult education, and tonight we've heard there's a director of transportation. These are all managerial or administrative positions that are not allocated to the system administration category. They're spread out over the whole budget. So we've been asked and required, in fact, to pay for these positions if we withdraw in the first year. And I just want to make clear that this is a sizable management cadre that did not exist prior to the RSU. We did not have most of those positions. That, I'm sorry, turned out to be more a statement than it was a question. I apologize for that. But if you'd like to see the list, I've got it. Thanks.
I did not hear a position there that did not exist either in one or duplicate or in three for the districts prior to the RSU. We had 3.3 superintendents before the RSU started. We had 3 business managers before the RSU started. We had 2.3 curriculum coordinators. We had 3 special ed directors, and there was not a position on that list that didn't exist either in one or in multiple versions prior to the formation, the reorganization into RSU 24. One of the things that we did have is we had people spread all over the place. So there were no special ed directors in the central office at School Union 92. They were all housed over at HCTC, and we paid for contracted services. Our food services people weren't sitting in the central office. They were actually the one that we have now. It was sitting in the kitchen at Ellsworth High School. So one of the things that you probably see if you go into the RSU 24 central office and start counting bodies, you're going to count a lot of people that existed prior to the RSU being formed, but weren't in the central office of either Union 96 or the Ellsworth School Department or the School Union 92 central office. But those are new positions.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, I'd like to move on to public comment. I'd like to keep the comments brief. One of the things that we'd kind of like to know in your public comment is what you expect that you would gain, what you'd like to see the RSU do, or what you would expect to gain by withdrawal from the RSU. Anyone?
Just a comment. What I'm interested in, and this is maybe more of a statement than a question, but this is comment time, is as an RSU, I have a pretty good understanding, and we've talked about both here at this meeting and prior meeting, about the accomplishments and things that have occurred under the RSU. What I'm not sure of, and I think one question of a number of members of the community is what the expectation, not yours obviously, but in a withdrawal of what that would look like, how we would put that together, and how it would come together in the course of the next year or so. That's something that I think a lot of people have questions on, and I personally don't have any answers on that yet. I'm kind of interested.
Anyone else? Well, I guess that if there's no other comments, then I guess we might as well call it an evening. Feel free.
Absolutely.
My name is Wendy Meyer, and I grew up in this school, only the old building that was here prior to this one, so this is a lot different than where I came from. But the one thing I keep hearing from community members is control. We want more control over our schools. I don't understand what we are going to gain for control. Can you tell me realistically, how much of this control that we can end up with? Or does the state regulate most everything? What can we gain from going it alone?
I can provide you with an example of what we had prior to the RSU, and probably the most obvious for those who know and for those who don't, the gym you're sitting in here now has been renovated. I think it was renovated after RSU 24 became RSU 24, but everything in here you see that's new is because of a community effort in honoring of Gina Haslam. The playground out back was put in with patrons' funds and the hard work of people who live in this community. The ball field our kids play on was created not out of tax money, but out of the goodwill of people who live in this community and those who donated to it. You know, as an example of what we've lost from the sense of community involvement, some of this playground equipment was in need of repair earlier this year, and I repaired it. I put it in. Perry, Heather's husband, installed it. I think Nate was there. I mentioned it as an aside at a board meeting and was told that I shouldn't be doing that, that we should put it all through the RSU now, that we should put in a ticket for the facilities manager to take care of these problems. So there are some benefits to the district. Certainly, you know, the economies of scale and that has been talked about. Curriculum, you know, you can debate the technical merits of what we're doing, but we have made great progress in that area. But we have lost a sense of community. We've become more detached as a school district from where we started. Those are some examples. But thank you.
I think your question's a good one, and certainly it's something that you folks as voters in Lemoyne have to think through. When I think about local control, the first thing that I hear about is that we used to be able to meet and talk about what we wanted to do for our kids and the programs we wanted, etc. And yes, indeed, there is still room for some of that, but education has shifted considerably over the last 10, 15 years. And we now are under the gun to actually implement very high levels of rigor and programs that meet the content standards. As an educator, I feel that education is no longer directed by educators, but it's being directed by policymakers in Augusta and in Washington. But put that aside for a minute. What we're doing for kids, I think, is actually what we should be doing. We're trying to raise standards. We're trying to give them more rigorous work and prepare them better for whatever their future may hold. But the idea of deciding, oh, we'll just, you know, spend this week studying the ecology of Marlborough Beach. Doing that kind of project was a great thing, and kids enjoyed that kind of thing. But it's very difficult to find time in our curriculum anymore for those kinds of projects. And that isn't a product of our district. That was true in the last 3 or 4 districts that I've been in. And I served as a curriculum director in Sanford, and I worked in curriculum in Kennebunk. All of those communities are facing the same thing. How do we do the work that we're required to do? And how much of those things that we used to be able to choose to do have to be put aside to do that? So that's a problem that's innate in education right now. People talk about local control as an opportunity to have more people involved in board meetings and coming down and talking about education. I know you have a fairly active parent group here that comes and meets with Donna and talks about the school and does some work on that. And there still certainly is lots of room for that. What Brett said about the playground equipment here, I really can't address. I'm not versed on that. But I do know that last year the PTO at Cave Hill School raised a whole lot of money and they installed new playground equipment, and we were very appreciative of that. So I don't think that those kinds of things are necessarily out of the question because we are now a larger district. Certainly we appreciate those efforts that are done in the schools. One of the things I hear is that we want to control our money locally, that we're putting our tax dollars and we want to have control of that. The reality is you actually, at the start of the consolidation process, you actually got a little bit more control of the money because now our budget process is a two-step process. And what happens is we have a district budget meeting, and those 11 cost centers or so that I mentioned up here, each one of those gets voted on separately at that meeting, and actually citizens can get up and say, we really don't want to spend $1 million on this, we'd like to spend $800,000, or we'd like to spend $100,000 more because we'd like you to add X, Y, Z. So the potential is there for the public to actually imprint that budget right then and there at that district budget meeting. Unfortunately, we don't get big turnouts at those meetings, and I wish we would. I think it would be healthy if we did. Just like I think it would be healthy if we had people come to our board meetings. We hold our board meetings twice a month, one meeting in Ellsworth, another meeting in Sumner, down in Sullivan, to try to get it as close to people as we can so that people have an opportunity to come. But we don't get a lot of people coming. So when it comes to actual control of money, you have that district budget meeting where you can come in and you can actually make recommendations. Then you go to the polls and you can vote on that budget and you can say, yes, I agree with this budget, or no, I don't. And every voter in all of our communities has that right to do that. And probably beyond that, and I invite you tonight, right after the holidays, we will start in earnest, meeting every other Wednesday night, and we'll be meeting in our district office in Ellsworth. And we will be going through our budget with a fine-tooth comb, and we will be building a budget for next year. And we will have all of our principals there and any of the directors there, and they will talk about their programs, and they'll talk with the board about what they think needs to happen, or changes that need to happen, or additions, or whatever, for their budget for the coming year, for the 14-15 year. And those sessions are very interesting. And when we have had people from the community, we didn't last year, I don't think we had anyone from the community come to those. But I remember a year or so before that, we had a gentleman from Gouldsboro who came to almost every session. And after a couple of weeks, he was sitting there and he'd talk to us and he'd give us some feedback and he'd ask questions. And we actually enjoyed having that happen. So, we really would be open to having more community participation. And I'm not sure that is entirely because we're a larger district. I will grant that it's harder to drive to Ellsworth for a meeting than it is to drive here for a meeting. That's true. But I think it's really a societal thing. Last night we held a meeting in Ellsworth, and tonight we have a meeting here. There were probably, I don't know, maybe 80 to 90 people at the meeting last evening. It was a great turnout. But we had over 200 people listening online to the meeting. So I do think that part of the problem of the local control and getting involved, and it is really a societal issue of folks accessing information in different ways now than they used to. Part of me really feels badly about that, because I think it is important to have meetings like this where we can sit face to face and talk about things. But there also is a reality out there that people are living busier lives and they're just not as involved as they could be. The opportunity to be involved is still there. And I also wanted to mention that one of the things we have underway that we didn't talk about tonight is we are really working on or toward a strategic plan. And we want to be able to articulate what are our, where do we see ourselves going in the future? And when we get through that, to get that process fully articulated, we will be coming to the public and wanting their opinions and their input on that. So I'm hoping if you're here this evening that when that opportunity comes up, you will share with us what your hopes and dreams are for Lamoine Consolidated School and for the rest of the district.
I have a comment about local control, because it just seems to be one of the things that we've heard a lot about. You do have a representative on the board. The representative does get an ample opportunity to speak. I recognize everyone. If anyone is in the audience, the board meetings are very poorly attended by the public. Everybody's living a busy life. The directors are meeting twice a month for board meetings. Most directors are on 2 subcommittees that meet monthly, so there's 2 other meetings. And if you have an issue, you have a direct line to your director to bring the information forward to the board. When we talk about education or anything to do with the students or the schools, it's a joint decision. I tell the directors to come to the meeting with their mind made up, be able to defend their position, but be open-minded enough that somebody else at the table may be able to meld their idea in with theirs and make it better, or be able to defend it so that they can convince the other members that that's the way to go. And we have some very good conversations, and I encourage that. And you do have directors, a director that represents you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Dime. I've got a three-part question actually for both administration and any board members that might be here. I think somewhat leads into strategic planning and also issue of local control. Can you tell me roughly how Lamoine ranks in terms of either current or projected student enrollments amongst the community schools that make up RSU 24?
Are you talking about percentage?
No, raw numbers.
State numbers say 169.5 students. That's the official number from this year's budget. Your numbers are actually down a little bit from that as of October 1st.
And how does that rank amongst the other schools? Is that middle of the road, the bottom end, high end?
In terms of numbers, I think that it's a little bit less right now. The original formula has you at about 8% of the district. I think you're coming in a little bit less than 8% of the district. David?
So the smallest school in the district is Cave Hill School. I'm talking K-8 numbers, has about 75, 76 kids. Ella Lewis School has about 90, and I think... 103. You up to 103? Yeah. Oh, so Lamoine might be... 103, yeah! So Lamoine might be the second lowest, because I believe Lamoine is now...
Yeah, around 100.
I was going to say they're third lowest, but they're second.
So it's safe to say we're in the bottom third or quarter or near the bottom. Which leads me to the second part of the question. Is there any consideration or discussion amongst either within administrative strategic planning or board strategic planning about the ugly topic of either closing schools or combining classes or combining levels, say middle school levels or K-4 levels, within the district in the future? All that being understood that the numbers are going to change or could change dramatically in the next week or two.
We actually looked at those numbers about a year ago, and we found that there is no way in the immediate future that we could do that. Ellsworth Elementary Middle School is our largest facility at the elementary level, and it is full. All of our other schools, at Mountain View School, for example, this year we had to actually build a classroom space out of a hallway area because we needed more space. Hancock School is absolutely full. It is very unlikely, unless something drastic happens to student population, that we would be able to do away with any of the classroom space that we presently have available in the district. Classroom space right now is at a premium.
And that would be regardless of individual school populations within the district? I mean...
At this point, yes, for sure.
We had a study done when we applied for 6 construction projects in the district. We had a company called Planning Decisions out of Portland do a cohort study for us, and can't hear me.
Yeah, you can use the mic, can't hear on the screen yet. They don't get some comments.
So we, a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, we submitted applications for construction projects at 6 of our facilities, and in that process, during that process, we had a firm from Portland, a consultant firm called Planning Decisions, do a cohort study on population, student populations and projections through to about 2020. And looking at those studies now 3 years down the line, they're holding pretty close to what they projected. They projected that there would be a slow drop in enrollments district-wide to about a little under 2,500, and then they'd level off and actually start growing starting 2015, 16, and keep growing slowly after that. Not due to birth necessarily, but they attribute it mostly to growth in the student population from economic development in this area as more and more development moves up the coast. So I'll hand it back to you, Tom.
Just the final piece of my question is there any discussions in terms of how to manage that population, either shrinking further or enhancing schools that happen to have low populations but are in close proximity to maybe some of the other towns or communities that are having a greater population increase? Is there any discussion about within RSU 24, as it, however it remains in the future, to maybe help equalize some of the numbers or specialize some of the curriculum?
Yeah, I can't tell you what will happen because, you know, it is a hypothetical at this point. However, you know, at this point it's a hypothetical, but I could see us being in a situation where we have to redistrict because some schools are overcrowded and we needed to move students to different places because of that. But I don't see it in terms of reducing facilities. I see it more in being able to manage where we have growth. We know we have a lot of growth in Ellsworth. That's a community that is up in enrollment. At some point, we're going to maximize that facility. And right now, the elementary part of that building, the K4 part, is full, I would say. I mean, you know, obviously there's a seat here and a seat there, but it's definitely a fully utilized facility. The 5-8 portion, as those students move up through, will be completely utilized over the next couple of years, you know, as the 4th grade moves to the 5th grade, 6th grade, et cetera. So we could very well get to a point where we actually have overflow and would have to manage that by using neighboring schools to deal with that effectively.
Anyone else?
I'm Mary Jude, and my question is, Ellsworth is looking to come out of this RSU. What do you anticipate as an impact of them leaving this, where they are the biggest population in this RSU?
If Ellsworth leaves the RSU, we're going to continue on. We're not going to stop educating our children. We're going to give the children the best education that we can for the dollars that we have available, and we can't worry about them if they step out. We don't want anybody to leave the RSU because we believe that we are functioning well, and we are providing that education. It's their choice, as it is yours on the 5th, the taxpayers of Lamoine and Hancock also, whether they stay or leave. But we are going to continue to offer the best that we can do. And if they leave, it may be that, if anyone leaves, it may be their loss. I can't answer that for sure, but.
So one of the things that's come up is sort of the thinking that, well, if Ellsworth leaves, then what's the future of the RSU and how does that impact the towns remaining? I've heard that discussed. Most of our costs are proportional to schools. So if a community leaves, then the facilities costs to that community go along with it. The transportation costs that cover that community basically go with it. So most of the reductions in our costs would be proportional to the loss of that student population. Now, I can't guarantee to be exactly the same, but most of that is. It was mentioned earlier that the withdrawal agreement does require any departing communities to pay certain contracts of their share of certain administrative contracts for 1 year after withdrawal. And that's very important to us as the RSU because we do not want to be in a position where next July 1st we have to change everything we're doing because we have to cut a whole bunch of positions without being able to think clearly through how we need to restaff, if indeed we need to restaff. So that agreement and that agreement holds in any of those 3 communities, would give the remaining communities a year with still having help with those central costs to sort of regroup and replan and downsize if we have to. So I think that's an important point to know about, because most of the costs in the budget, special ed costs, if 100 special ed kids leave, then the cost for those kids will go with it, and we'll be able to reduce our budget accordingly. And if a facility leaves, then the cost of that facility will leave as well. But those central costs were a problem for us, because we think we're organized to do the work well, and we really don't want to disturb that, because it's working. But we also recognize that if we're a smaller district, we are going to have to reorganize somehow. But we don't want to be in a position where we have very little time to do that, and we have to do it in a way that's a knee-jerk way, rather than a planned change that serves us all well. And let me just go down that road just a little bit further. This is why that's important. We have trained staff so that they have specialized jobs and that they can do special things. And we think that's one of the strengths of what we offer in being able to provide better services and handle the running of the district better. We don't want to have to lose somebody and have them walk out the door with all that training, because that's going to hurt everyone who remains in the RSU. So we're very pleased that those agreements will give us a year to look through and to downsize in a very planful way, rather than as an abrupt change.
Is there anyone else? If not, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Vote on November 5th, and just remember at the end, however it shakes out, we're still friends and neighbors, and let's try to keep it that way.
Hey, Mike. I wanted to reiterate Mike's point of voting. There have been some people in various circles that I've heard sort of make the comment, or the general idea that not voting is the same as a no vote. It's absolutely not. If there's not a high enough turnout, any answer that comes out of it would not actually be a definitive answer. So even if it's a tremendously lopsided vote one way or the other, it wouldn't mean anything. And this has been a very long, drawn-out process for the communities involved and the district as a whole, and we would be serving nobody well at all to not, make every effort to get as many people out to vote and answer this question. So nonpartisan, everybody knows how I feel about this, but going out and voting could not be more important than for this particular thing, I think. So thank you.
Yep.